Yeah, if we want to test. Okay. I think test. Come through.
Can you all hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, great. We are ready to roll. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Milwaukie Planning Commission. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the city website at www.milwaukeeoregon.gov. You may locate them by navigating to the community calendar where tonight's meeting page is posted. If you have not reviewed the agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process. The city of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. Moving on to the approval of the January 28th, 2025 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any corrections to make?
No.
Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And I'll second. Do you have a second? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. I think that was unanimous, so thank you. Let's see, are there any informational items from staff?
There are not any at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then this is an opportunity to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Does any audience member wish to comment on an item that is not on tonight's commission agenda?
We do have a couple of people in the room, Vice Chair Edge. And so at this time, I would like to invite, I believe, Charles, I got yours first? Yeah? You can come up.
Sit anywhere? I think so, yeah. If you just hit the button.
Okay, and before you comment, please remember to state your name and spell it for the record and state your city of residence.
My name is Charles Bays. I'm with Cambia Asparagus Farm, Custody Tamales. My home address is 32410 South Nady Road, Cambia, Oregon. And that is my name and my address, okay? I'm here tonight because I'm a little confused on a couple of things, and I may be at the wrong place, so I want you to know that. I've noticed that we've had 14 new businesses go in here in Milwaukie in the past, I'll just say 12 months, 18 months. But what I'm a little concerned about is the improvements. When I say improvements, I'm talking about lighting, bike rails, benches, planters, whatever the city requires for that new home front to put in when they open up their new establishment. I see 14 businesses here that haven't put in, to my knowledge, a bike rail, a bench, a tree guards for the trees, you know what I'm saying? All of the above. Now, has the city stopped requiring business to do that start a new business here in the city of Milwaukie?
Well, I can follow.
I'd like to defer to staff. Yeah, thank you, Laura.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we do have certain requirements depending on where the business is being located and so what the circumstances are. And so I can't speak to the 14 businesses that you're referring to now. So every business is a little bit different depending on their location. So I could get back to you.
Okay, well, every business that I'm talking about basically are on Main Street. And that's a little concerning that they require some businesses to do it another business not to do it. You know, and I hear what you said, that you'll get back to me. But, you know, some of these businesses have already been here for a couple of years. And I just leaves me a little confused that, and once again, you said you'll get back to me. It leaves me a little confused. Why aren't these being done? Even though you say every business is a little bit different, all of these businesses basically are new businesses. And that includes, how do you guys say it, for a car count or something like that there? Because with these 14 new businesses, you know, it's bringing in more traffic, which is very good. And I'm all for all of these new businesses coming in, but also they need to contribute to make the city of Milwaukie even prettier than it is today. And I'd like to see some answers on that, because that's 14 businesses that I haven't seen anything as of yet. And if you need a list of those businesses, I'll be happy to get you a list.
You can pull the list.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can also just add on to what Laura said. And you know, with each new business, we have to make an individualized determination based on the impacts of that business. And, you know, sometimes when it is simply just a change of business and there's not a change of use proposed, there are basically legal limits on what we can require new businesses to, how we can require them to improve the streetscape, if that's what we're talking about.
But these are all new businesses, basically, you know.
Yeah, but presumably they replaced businesses that were previously there at some point in time. Usually, you know, the types of improvements that you're talking about is associated with new development that is being proposed.
No, I'm talking about old existing buildings.
Right,
I'm an old
exactly.
existing building. I had to put up 2 bike racks and a bench. There was nobody there when I went into my spot. There was somebody there before me.
Understood, yeah.
Yep, so we'll just have to do a little bit of research and I can get back to you. I don't know the answers to the questions for each of the
Yeah,
individual
because
businesses.
I think that the city's losing out on a lot of benches for the city, a lot of trees for the city, all of the above.
Okay,
Unless you guys change your policy.
all right, well, we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So you have no answer for me as I speak.
I do not.
I think we're gonna have to look at each
business.
individual business.
I have to know what they are, so I can't speak off the cuff if I don't know which businesses they are and where they're
Like I
located.
told you, I have a name of them.
Okay,
Cool. Thanks.
thank you. And we have one more attendant in the audience, and I believe that you're asking to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Is that correct? Oh, you're asking to speak about the historic resources application?
Isn't there usually 3 minutes that's open?
This is that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can come up. Yep.
So if the light's on, it's on? Yeah. Okay, you want name and spell it?
Yes, please, and city of residence.
Bernie Stout, BernieStout, and I live in Hector Campbell neighborhood. I'm just here to plant a seed. I've been here 22 years, and what I've observed on just my street are 3 different houses that are being, you know, I know there's been zoning changes, state level and Milwaukie, but one house was legally converted into a duplex, and they put in separate heating and separate meters, and they did permits. Great. Second house across the street, owner occupied, rents the basement, altered wiring, plumbing, got away from it because all they have is a heating or a cooking flat unit on the counter. Evidently, you have to have a 30-inch stove with an oven in it. The house next to me, they've been developing it illegally, and they handymen keep coming in and doing all sorts of wiring and plumbing. They put in a 30-inch stove with an oven. But for years, all I heard about was there was one person in code compliance. Now there's a larger staff. So my seed that I'm trying to plant is would you please maybe develop some more legal tools for code enforcement to come down a little bit more firmly rather than, they always seem to bob and weave. They always seem to, well, for instance, this weekend, the neighbor put in a man door in the garage so that the basement can be rented. And it's been rented for the past 5 years to numerous people getting arrested for battery, young couple with a baby, and the boyfriend had killed his bus buddy in a car wreck and was going to prison, and she was pregnant. And then they moved out. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But my point is the city needs to pay attention to alterations to homes that are being used. You have short-term rental on the internet, but you have nothing about landlord, rentals. So I'll follow through with you guys somewhere along the line, but I'm just kind of bringing it up to say, maybe look at it.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. If you have any kind of formal things that we don't know, we don't know. So if there's something that you know that's going on.
I've been doing this for 10 years now, but what I'm getting is, there's only one person. And, he's got a staff now, so I'm trying to get the city to, maybe the attorney can write something up that gives them a little more power to go in, because there seems to be a hindrance to even going in now.
Okay, well, thanks for the feedback.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll talk to the code enforcement guys about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Vice Chair Edge or Chair Edge. I don't know if I'm calling you Vice Chair Edge or Chair Edge.
You can call me Vice Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, you can call me Vice Chair.
Okay. I believe those are the only two folks that are in the room at the moment to testify. And yeah, okay, that's correct. Thank you.
And then in terms of Zoom attendees, do we have any who may wish to, you can use *9 to indicate that you'd like to make a comment. Do we know who the attendees are, Laura?
We do. We have two attendees on Zoom, but they're both here for the hearing.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on. Okay, so on to our hearing item. The next agenda item is a continuation of the Type 3 application for historic resource review, file number HR-2024-002. It is called the Type 3 application for the historic resource review for 1620 Southeast Waverly Drive is called to order. There's the gavel. Okay. Before proceeding, Commissioner Pennick, if you are participating in this hearing, please declare for the record your ability to do so.
Yes, I was present for the previous hearing, so I'm comfortable proceeding with this hearing and participating.
Thank you. The applicant has the burden of proving that the application is consistent with the city's zoning and subdivision ordinance, comprehensive plan, any applicable municipal code provision, and that the proposal conforms with the city's applicable criteria. I now ask staff to cite the zoning ordinance section or sections where the criteria can be found.
Yes, thank you. So it's sections MMC, sections 19301, sections 19403, and sections, sorry, Commissioner, 19006.
Thank you. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria. Failure to address a criterion or raise an issue with sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue precludes appeal to the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow a response precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party with standing may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission to the City Council. Persons with standing are those who submit comments or testify. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the Commission may, if requested, allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Any such continuance or extension shall be subject to the limitations of the 120-day rule, unless the continuance or extension is requested or agreed to by the applicant. Does any member of the commission wish to abstain from this hearing? No. Does any member of the commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest? No. Does any member of the commission wish to report on any ex parte contact? No. Will any commissioner who has visited the site prior to this hearing, please raise their hand? I can't see in the room at the moment because of the screen share. So I will ask the question anyway. Did any commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything different from what is indicated in the staff report for this application?
No.
Okay, thank you. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the Planning Commission? Does not look like it. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter?
Nope.
Excellent. Let's proceed to the staff report.
All right. Let me share this again. And okay. Can those online see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, good evening, commissioners. Ryan Dyer, an associate planner. As Chair Edge said, tonight we're here for land use file number HR 2024-002. This is a proposal to modify the exterior of a significant historic resource with the address 1620 Southeast Waverly Drive. So just a recap of the process. This is a continuation of a hearing that was originally opened on December 10th of 2024. At that hearing, the hearing was continued until January 28th of 2025. We opted to do what we refer to as the 777 schedule. So that provided an opportunity for the applicant to submit new evidence, for the public to comment on that new evidence, and for final arguments to be made by the applicant. So new evidence was submitted by the applicant on December 20th, and we did not receive any public comment from anyone, but we did receive an updated, if you recall, for this application, staff did retain a consultant who has expertise in architecture and specifically historic resources. So they did provide an updated assessment of the updated materials that were provided by the applicant on December 20th. And then no final arguments were submitted within that final 7 period. The city did receive an additional plan set from the applicant on January 23rd. This was before the January 28th hearing, but technically I think as you all covered at that January 28th hearing, the record had closed. And so at that January 28th hearing, the record was reopened by Planning Commission, and that evidence was submitted into the record. In addition to that, there was some back and forth with staff and the applicant, and a new plan set that just provided further clarity on a couple of outstanding concerns was submitted to the city on January 30th, and that is the plan set that was provided to the Planning Commission in the staff report. So I know there was a lot there, but that's the history on this one. So just to review, this is a truncated version of the staff report that was provided on December 10th, but highlighting just the key facts here. So again, the site is located at 1620 Southeast Waverly Drive. It's developed with a single detached structure, a detached carport, and landscape gardens. The property is zoned moderate density residential, and it has a historic overlay zoning designation as well. That historic overlay designation indicates that the resource is listed on the city's inventory of historic properties and is therefore regulated under NMC 19403. The house, which was constructed in 1922, was listed as significant on the city's inventory. There are a variety of reasons that you can land as significant on the inventory, but this particular house was listed because it scored a 10 out of 10 in the person category due to the prominence of its original owners, William and Annie McMaster, and it scored a 10 out of 10 in the style category. The inventory refers to this particular house as the best example of colonial revival architecture in Milwaukie. So again, under the code, exterior modifications that aren't expressly exempted, so that's, i.e. that's routine maintenance, basically, requires, so anything that is not routine maintenance requires review, that is an exterior modification requires review by the Milwaukie Planning Commission. So some of the prominent features identified in that inventory, the primary entrance with its paired panel doors, its swan's neck pediments, its full entablature and ionic pilasters, its stucco exterior cladding, the coining, which is also near the front entrance, also comprised of stucco, the polygonal bay windows, the in-wall chimney, the Palladian window, and the belt course above the head of the second story windows. So getting to the proposal itself, the applicant is seeking land use approval to alter the structure by adding a primary wing on the east side of the residence. So that can be seen here. Adding a 306 square foot prefabricated conservatory at the southwest side of the residence here. Extending the garage wall 6 feet. And then extending the south kitchen and kitchen nook walls, which can be seen here. They're also not highlighted, but shown here. They're proposing a lanai on the south elevation and one on the north elevation in the northwest corner here. Additionally, the applicant is proposing on the second floor some wall extensions on the east wall at the existing bath. And the roof of the main body of the house is to remain at its current height as it is today, but other proposed roofs are also, where the new addition is proposed, are proposed to use similar roof slopes and will not exceed the maximum height. Okay. So looking here at the north elevation, you can see the existing on the bottom and the proposed at the top. And I'm showing here, this is an old elevation, and I'm showing these primarily to the commission just so that you can see, we can highlight some of the changes that have been made, and therefore address some of the, show how some of the concerns of the city's architect, consultants have been addressed by the applicant. So this is showing the north of the street facing elevation. Again, this was the plan set that was submitted on December 20th. And let's see, the consultant took a look at this and provided comments, and they identified 5 of the approval criteria, which can be found in 19403.5, that 5 of those were not met. These were the same 5 that were not met when this application came before the commission on December 10th. So our consultant found that some improvements have been made, but that basically they were still failing to meet the same approval criteria. This slide is showing specifically what they found challenging about the application. Basically what it came down to was the proposed modifications to windows and entries on the north elevation, which is what the historic 1988 historic inventories is sort of those original sort of distinguishing characteristics of the house that I mentioned earlier. So if you recall from the first time that we talked about this application, one of the challenges that our consultant had was that the applicant was proposing to pull forward this primary entrance. When the applicant resubmitted plans on December 10th, they had pulled that back, but some of the other challenges remained. So again, the windows and entries. So they were proposing to, while they were consistent with the sort of general colonial revival architectural style, they ultimately were changing the design of those windows and entries. So you can see here where there were previously 2, they were proposing 3. Similarly, that was the case here, replacing entry doors here with windows. And removing an entryway here. And then another issue was with the roof design on the proposed west wing. The consultant was concerned that the modification to the pediments above the second-story windows was not consistent with what the code was looking for from a roof design perspective. So ultimately, both the plan set that was submitted to the city on the 23rd of January, and then the again modified plan set that was submitted on January 30th. And I'll just say that second plan set was really just not actually proposing any changes to the design. There was more just correcting inconsistencies within the plan set itself. But the applicant has removed some of those elements that the city's architectural consultant was concerned with. So you can see here that the design of the windows on this north elevation, the pediments on the second-story west wing are now consistent with the originals. The one thing I did not mention before that our consultant was also concerned with was that the proposed east wing of the house was going to obscure the historic facade. And so what was recommended by the consultant to address this, and what the applicant has ultimately ended up doing, is adjusting this east wing by moving it slightly to the east. So that is no longer sort of obstructing the view of the historic facade from the right-of-way. So the city did not receive at any point in this process any comments from the public on this application. And that was just a back pocket slide in case we wanted to talk more about that. So your decision-making options for tonight are to approve the application subject to the findings and conditions of approval, approve the application with modified findings and or conditions of approval. Those modifications would need to be read into the record. Deny the application upon finding that it does not meet the approval criteria. Those findings would also need to be read into the record, or you could continue this hearing to a date certain. Staff's recommendation, as highlighted in the staff report, is to approve the application. We believe that the applicant has made the changes that the city's consultant was looking for, and that the application is ultimately approvable. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commission for staff?
I just have one quick. Did the submitted any Windows sample or window product that will be similar to what it was original in there with the replacement?
Not beyond what was submitted in the plan set, what you saw. There's a window schedule, I'm sure you saw, but there's no example beyond that.
I think the question is more about what the material would look like, maybe trying to confirm, you know, what the, how the division of lights will look. Whether they're kind of faux muttons or true muttons.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
that's
that
kind of,
understood. Yeah, the plan set does not, I think, get that detailed. And I think the thought, at least from staff's perspective, is that the general appearance was consistent with what was there, and that from, at least from the right of way, the house is set back at a distance that it would be pretty difficult to distinguish, I think. But that's also speaking as a non-historic preservation professional, so.
okay. Yeah, I think in general, that's pretty important, but yeah.
I can also, I don't know if we do have our historic preservation consultant is here as well. And I don't know if Jessica, if you have anything to add to that, I can promote you to a panelist. And yes, she's joining. We'll see if she can provide a more educated response.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Schmidt. I'm the preservation planner at Peter Meisher Architect. As part of this review, we did not review the material of windows. So that's not something that we gave a response to in our recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
I will also just say that the applicant's representative or somebody from the applicant's representation team is here, who I've also promoted to a panelist. So Austin might be able to provide more detail.
If it's from the applicant's team, then we might wait until after the applicants had the opportunity to give their presentation.
Apologies. Thanks, Commissioner Edge.
No problem.
Yeah, no further questions for the planner.
Okay, thank you. Then let's see, have we received any correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the meeting packet?
We have not.
Okay, then would the applicant or their representative like to comment?
Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Brown with Fowler Home Design. I don't have any comments at the moment, so yeah, we can continue. I guess regarding the windows, I don't have any more detail on that portion either. I don't think the project is quite to that step. I don't think they've met with a window rep at this point. But yeah, I don't have any details on that.
Okay, thank you. Was there any other members of the applicant team that wanted to comment?
Nope. Austin is the only one here.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see, then, let's see, where are we? We will now recognize those persons submitting public testimony on this application. If you're here to testify, please remember to confine your remarks on the application and the relevant criteria, and to avoid repetition and information not relevant. Please state your name and city of residence for the record so they may be entered into the minutes. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in support of the application?
We do not. There's no one in the room to speak on about the application.
Okay. Then just as a matter of formality, do we have anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? No. And no one there to offer neutral testimony. Okay, then. Does any member of the Planning Commission have questions, any remaining questions regarding the testimony to this point? Okay, then let's see, applicant has the opportunity for rebuttal, but nothing was said. So public testimony portion of the hearing on the request of the Historic Resource Review at 1620 Southeast Waverly Drive, file number HR-2024-002 is now closed. Is the commission ready for discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to lead us off?
I would be happy to begin, if folks don't mind.
Thank you. No, please.
I think
Take it away.
Commissioner Frohnmeyer started off with a couple good points that I wanted to kind of circle back on. So at a high level, I definitely want to say that I really appreciate all of the review and attention that's been paid to this to ensure that the approval criteria, the intent of the approval criteria are met, that historic resources are allowed to, grow and thrive, but also maintain significant historic components that help bring value to everyone in our community. So I really appreciate the entire process that has been followed through to this point. I think it's been done in an incredibly professional and just a really great manner that I'm really happy to see. I want to say thank you to PMA for everything that you've been able to provide to this point. Your feedback, your review is incredibly helpful. It was really nice to see multiple perspectives on the position. I also appreciate the care that was taken to meet the intent of the criteria. And I think that there's been overall a very important steps towards adequate balance. Considering this is the best example of this style in the city, which I agree that particularly within the high style specifically, this is definitely a fantastic example of colonial revival. I think there are some key components of the colonial revival. For example, paired windows versus three-part windows, three-part being more reminiscent of, say, the Craftsman period. I think it's nice to see some of these details retained. I have a couple things that still stand out to me. I'm not opposed to approval. However, I still have two things that stand out. One would be whether the window lights are truly divided lights or if they are faux muntins. I think that is an important thing to consider. I understand at this point that hasn't been defined by the applicant, and I think that at this time, with that understanding that it has not currently been defined, I would propose perhaps a recommendation to consider true divided lights versus like a faux, kind of vinyl muntin. I recognize that the building is set back from the roadway. I would say from my background, I'm an architectural historian. My professional background and experience would say that it does make a big difference, the appearance with true divided lights versus non-divided. So I would highly recommend considering true divided lights if you're able to, or if you're not able to, then the muntins, separating even if they're faux muntins, making sure they have a bit of a profile to them, like a raised profile, and so they're not like the flat faux divided muntins. There are ones that have more of like a rounded raised surface. I think that would make a big difference visually for the character of the home. I think it would bring great value from an aesthetic perspective. So I just genuinely recommend that. The only other thing that stood out to me is on the first story of the west wing, the Palladian window previously, the current location of the Palladian window is centered below the window on the second story. And in the proposed design, the Palladian window is just off center of the window on the second story. Again, from I would say design aesthetic, I think that stands out quite a bit as an inconsistency. One of the tenements of colonial revival architecture is symmetry, if not symmetry, at least pretty strong alignment to kind of mimic the idea of columns and things divided within bays and regularity within bays. So having the Palladian window just off center of that second story window on the west wing, I think visually is kind of throwing me off. So those are really, I think there's been a wonderful balance. I would acknowledge the fact that there are substantial alterations occurring to other elevations that we have not, required, any specific design on because they're not public, viewing elevations, and I appreciate that. But I do think that the centering of the Palladian window on the west wing underneath the window on the second story would be, again, it's highly recommended and would bring it to more visual uniformity. That and trying to incorporate muntins that have at least a raised profile would be two recommendations that I have. So my question would then be, because we've said we could make recommendations to approve with kind of alterations to the plan. Those would be, in that light, those would be things I would recommend. And I would feel comfortable approving with those elements being considered.
So Commissioner, do you want those as, are you recommending those as conditions of approval or just as recommendations to the applicant?
I think perhaps if we can still ask the applicant to respond to something, I would say my only question with the centering of the window on the first story, if that was intentionally put askew because of where walls need to line up, or if there's a reason why that window is no longer lining up with the second story, if there's a rationale behind it, I would perhaps want to consider that. If there isn't a need for the design to move forward, then I would recommend it as a condition. The windows with the muntins having a raised profile, I would say would be a recommendation, since I think that there is it's still in the early planning stages for the windows. So I think I'd be comfortable with that one being a recommendation, highly recommended, but a condition for centering the window would be preferred.
Does staff have any feedback on whether these would be appropriate as conditions of approval?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of them would be a recommendation. One of them would be a condition of approval.
Correct.
Two different things, right? You're mostly concerned with the window being centered.
The Palladian window,
with
yes.
The Palladian window is just, hey, think about this. This would be a really good idea, but it's not going to be a requirement.
Well, the window
You do want the
I
window
would
as a
like to
condition
see
of
that.
approval.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I would.
It's
I
the-
know.
Yeah.
It's the only window bay, the only vertical band of windows that doesn't align on the first story and second story. And it really throws off the overall schema of the design. I would like to recommend that, or not, I would like to make that a condition of
Okay.
approval. I would say unless there's a reason that they weren't able to make them align. Are we able to ask that, or is it too late to ask that?
Well, I think it would have been better to ask them before, but I think that we could bring them back. Yep. Yeah, why don't we bring them back?
Yeah, that would be my only hesitation, is just not having had that conversation with the applicant. I don't know if it is, as you pointed out, related to, somehow.
I think it just kind of,
Structurally a concern.
We can promote them back up and see if they can
that's all
respond to
right.
the question.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is that okay with Justin procedurally to do that right now?
He's nodding yes.
Okay, very good.
And I guess just on that note, I wonder if Commissioner Fuenmayor, if you have any concerns additionally to Commissioner Graycheck, because I just want to be sure that we get everything captured so that the applicant responds to it one time. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
In my case, I will say that I have no others than those. I think everything else, I want to echo pretty much everything that Commissioner Graycheck said. So I think my concern with the window, that's why I asked first, was yes, about the mullions and how the mountains, how they how they fall, or the real ones. They do make a difference in the depth and the shadow and how they look, even though you said it's far away from the street, they do make a difference. I know there also is economical difference. And I will feel more comfortable making that a condition of approval rather than just recommendation, because it is, windows have a huge impact on the main elevation, especially in historic buildings. So I would rather have that, like having a more clear like vision of how the facade is going to look. If we know that it's going to have the specific requirements that we're asking for, even though they have not been there yet in the project, but we can have that input into the design, even though in the next phase. And I will let Austin just respond about the window. I am also thrown off by the non-alignment of that. So.
Okay, yeah, so about the window, the primary focus on reworking that roof on the upper floor was to have it match the existing a bit more, with the dormers popping out and that plate height being a little higher than the existing roof. So basically trying to work with the layout, the proposed layout on the upper floor. You have that hallway if you refer to the plans, and trying to fit both of those dormers in without that window getting into the bathroom on the upper floor, because that wouldn't work how the bathroom's currently laid out. So yeah, that was the primary focus, and that's why the alignment, I think, fell to the wayside and wasn't aligned. I think if we did want to align that, we would have to reshuffle that upper floor plan a bit. I think if we simply aligned that window, those dormers would be quite close together, so I'm not sure exactly how that would work out. But yeah, I think that's something I'd have to see how it all lay out, and I could shift that other window over. I mean, in the existing plans, that dormer on the left is already super close to that wall. That's why I was trying to give it a bit more space, but I see what you guys are saying with the alignment, and yeah, I definitely agree. I think it would just take a little bit of adjustment.
So you're saying that sort of the both in the historic view, the opening of the window on the left, it is completely aligned with the opening on the door. And then the Palladium window on the center of the window, the two dividing of the two windows are centered on the center of the Palladium. Is that like, that's kind of, if that is possible, that would be really great for the elevation, because it's kind of breaking the harmony of the elevation if you don't have that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think we can make that happen. I think I might just need to adjust the roofs a little bit. Because yeah, with that roof, we wanted to raise it a little bit so we have some more workable ceiling height on that floor. But yeah, I think we can make that work.
I just want to be sure that, because we're kind of designing on the fly now, which is a little problematic, just because I want to be sure that the applicant, I don't want to put it in a condition that the applicant ultimately does not feel comfortable doing without having actually looked at the plans and made some of these adjustments. At least for this particular piece, the windows are kind of a separate thing. That decision can be made. I think that could be made a condition of approval fairly easily. But I guess my question, and maybe this is a question for you and the commission, Justin, if we would want to continue this hearing and let the applicant do the work before we said that we were approving or denying this application with those findings, with the recommendation. Because if they can't guarantee that it's going to work, I don't want to have to hold them accountable for something that they're not comfortable doing.
From a process standpoint, neither of these items were discussed with the applicant at the prior hearing, and both of these elements, I'm not certain, but I believe were in the previous plans. They've just been updated somewhat. And so not discussing with them, it puts the applicant somewhat in a difficult position to design on the fly as to whether or not they can actually meet that condition. So walking out of here with an approval without fully vetting it can be problematic. So I think probably, even though they're simple, if the wish is to make them as conditions of approval, if the applicant is open to it, we should likely consider continuing the hearing to let them go through that design process and figure it out, particularly if it's going to be as strong as a condition of approval.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm not an architect, so I can't say the extent to which that particular, this is not to comment at all on the requirement or the idea behind the requirement. I just don't know the professional machinations that need to take place in order to deliver on it. And I would hate for an applicant to walk out here with a conditioned approval that they ultimately can't meet.
And Ernestina has her hand raised, so I want to make sure she can speak.
I was going to suggest that this will be a recommendation rather than a condition of approval. This, so that in case that it cannot be met due to, structural reasons and spatial reasoning regarding meeting. Like I understand, like the roof getting too close there, and then you might have some conflict with the gutters or anything, or any structural issues you might have in that corner that you might want to find other solutions that might work better for you. But I think in general, if we can have a note that it says the intent is that some alignments, and then we can work through that language. I think that will be better rather than just making a conditional approval. That's my suggestion, Commissioner H.
Thank you. Yeah, and certainly this is. I mean, the question for the commission is, if we make recommendations, they may be ignored, and so it's just important to know that if these are important elements, ultimately for to be that should be included in the outcome that. We would want these to be conditions of the approval. But if we're content with these being recommendations that the applicant is willing to, accept or reject, at their discretion, then, we could probably be talking about whether we're approving this tonight, without any additional conditions, rather than discussing whether we need to continue the hearing again and afford the applicant more time to, come up with a more certain design that we would then be approving. So that would be my question for the commission is, are we happy with these as simple recommendations so that we, can talk about, an approval tonight, or do we want to ask the applicant to revise the designs and come back?
I would, Commissioner Graytrick, I would say, I'm comfortable with them being recommendations, with the understanding, so as we've just discussed from the applicant's side, from the construction company, that he recognizes the value of aligning the window. I think that's been recognized as a valuable design goal. The question is whether it is feasible within the construction, which was what I had originally said, was that I was curious if there was a reason why it didn't align, because they couldn't align it. And it sounds as though the intent from the applicant is to see if there is an option to align. And if there is not, I don't see a reason to, I'm not proposing to require someone to make a design choice that isn't possible. Thus, I think making it a recommendation is fine, because we're basically saying if it's able to occur within the design, this should occur within the design. But I don't think it's necessary to make it a requirement.
Okay.
With the windows, I feel that I'm comfortable with it being a recommendation, because I do recognize the added cost. And one thing that to keep in mind with that, Commissioner Fornmeyer, perhaps it makes us feel a little bit more comfortable, is recognizing that there are no design requirements for the rest of the windows on the house. So if they were to only do that design choice on the facade, then you potentially have different windows on different elevations, but we're not making any, we're not laying any requirements down for the design on those other elevations. So that's why I think I'm comfortable with recommending either true divided lights or a raised profile on the light divisions. Just from an aesthetic perspective, I think it would bring a lot of value to the homeowner and to the design. I truly think it would make a huge difference. So it's just highly recommended, but I don't think that we necessarily need to require that. So I'm comfortable with moving forward today with a recommendation of approval with the recommendations that we've outlined.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Pinnock, did you want to offer any comments?
I think I'm ultimately also in favor of moving forward with them as recommendations. It's not like we're discussing any elements that would be in jeopardy of being lost. We're talking about aesthetic decisions here. We're not losing the Palladian window. It's not a question of that. It's something much more minor. I will say that even as I will defer to my colleagues with domain knowledge here, but even as a layman walking past the structure, I feel like something like the alignment would be really noticeable. It certainly is noticeable to me in the plans given as quite a departure from the original. So I would strongly recommend them to the design team, but I am comfortable moving forward without them being conditions of approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Finroyer, did you want to add any other comments or?
No, I'm agreeing in general with everything they're saying. I just want to say also thank you to the staff for all the back and forth and feedback with the consultant team, with the PMA, and with the architect to try to make this resource to really keep their history and keep like being important and part of our history of the city. I think it's being a big change from the first proposal, and I'm really happy to see that all the main elements have remained in the character of the building, the main kind of main features that were already discussed throughout the reports and back and forth multiple times. So I want to thank the architects and the design team and the client for being open to make all these changes back and forth and then comments and all the things that take. And I know it's not the most exciting things many times, and it's very stressful, and it takes a lot of effort and money and to do that, but I think it will be worth it. And I'm probably sure that you as an architect have learned a lot for all the things that take to get historic buildings to keep being historic and being valued to the community. So I appreciate all that intent and everything, all the effort put into the drawings. So with that said, I think I'm okay and with everything that had been said before regarding the recommendations.
Great, thank you. So I'll just throw in my comments as well. I do also appreciate the willingness of the applicant and team to, really to iterate with staff on this and make sure that, that they were, I think they've made great strides in, trying to, address the approval criteria. And, I think that's really reflected in the findings the draft findings that were presented or prepared by staff in this hearing, this week's packet. It's we're now recommending approval instead of recommending denial like we were previously. And so and certainly in reviewing those findings, I do think they're accurately reflecting the facts in the record. And so that they are now recommending approval from staff, makes our job easier, certainly tonight, and not having to amend findings at all. So I'm certainly comfortable moving forward with this, and I really appreciate the discussion, among the commissioners tonight. And I'm happy that we're not asking the applicant to continue the hearing again to make revised designs. It's certainly at the will of my fellow commissioners, but I'm happy to see that we're ready to approve this tonight. And then I just wanted to make sure with Justin that that there's if we were to make a recommendation, or we are making a recommendation, obviously, if there are revisions to the designs, there's flexibility for the applicant in making those revisions to be consistent with our recommendation. They wouldn't have to come before us for a modification. Is that correct?
I don't believe so, no. I do want to talk about how or if we want to come up with language to incorporate the recommendations into the findings. This isn't my area of expertise, so I heard the words that you said. So maybe you could work with Ryan to establish language for that on the two areas, the alignment of the window and what is the instead of faux?
Yeah, whether they're faux divided lights or true divided lights.
Okay,
Yeah.
Excellent.
I would be happy.
Is that something we should do right now, right, Justin?
If we're going to incorporate it into the order as recommendations so that it's memorialized in the findings, then I think we should come up with, I don't think it's a lengthy exercise. I think we've articulated it all right here.
Yeah. Would it be helpful if I provided that language in a concise manner?
But just to be clear, it would still not be a requirement. It would just be a recommendation from the commission. Okay.
Correct.
And it would be included in the findings.
I think maybe not necessarily in the findings, but at the bottom of the findings that approved with the above referenced findings.
Yeah.
Planning Commission also recommends the following, something along those lines. I leave it to the author and the organizer of the findings to figure out where to put it, but that seems like a logical place to me.
Perhaps under where we typically include conditions of approval, additional requirements, and then maybe recommendations from the commission. Okay.
That sounds great.
Yeah, if you want to give me
Certainly.
language.
So one recommendation would be for the windows to utilize either true divided lights, meaning individual panes of glass, divided.
Is this for all windows?
On the facade.
On the north elevation?
On the north elevation, also known as the facade. The windows would either have true divided lights with individual panes of glass separated by members. The material, we don't need to dictate the material. Or if they're faux divisions between the panes, that those divisions have a raised profile simulating divided light.
Watching YouTube later.
This is ASMR of window division.
Okay.
And I was gonna say, would you call that more the street facing facade rather than just the facade? Because
I like the specificity.
yeah.
Well, fair enough.
So calling the street facing facade rather than just the facade.
Generally, the facade is the primary elevation that contains the entrance, but I see what you're saying. Yes.
We could say the north elevation.
North elevation.
Just the north elevation.
North elevation,
yes.
it's fine.
I think just being more specific because
Oh, got it.
Yeah. And secondarily, an additional recommendation would be for the existing Palladian window located on the north elevation of the west wing would align with the window immediately above it on the second story, creating a straight vertical alignment between the two windows.
Got it.
Do we need to read those back, or are we happy with those that we know, just of the commissioners, are we happy with? We know what's there, or do we want to hear it again?
Can we add to that second recommendation that something along the lines that is similar to the original, like alignment similar to the original, something that, because the original elevation had those alignments. So that's kind of what we were looking for.
Okay. Standard.
So it's like, it's easier to refer to rather than just kind of describe it all.
So standard consistent with the original.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarifying language. We'll be sure to get that right in the staff report that we send out. Thank you.
Okay, I think we might be ready for a motion. And someone else needs to make it, not me.
Bear with me on correct verbiage. Motion to approve the design as amended with the recommendations provided by the commission.
Could you just get the application number in there?
Move, including application number HR 2024-200 or 002.
Thank you. I have a motion for approval with the amended findings. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second. Is there any further discussion before we poll? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Did we get all four, or anybody anybody that wants to vote no?
It's all eyes, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I'm seeing the multi-screen and not the room. So thanks everyone. I think that we're good. Oh, I see. It wanted me to pull up. I missed that line. Okay, so if anyone wishes to, that was approved. If anyone wishes to appeal the commission's decision to the city council, you must make application stating the grounds for your appeal within 15 days of the mailing of the notice of decision. Please see planning staff for details. Anything else before we move on?
Nothing in the room.
Okay, perfect. At this point of the agenda, the commission will act as the Community Involvement Advisory Committee. Does staff have any updates?
I do not.
Do CIAC members have any items to report? Hearing none. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak with the Planning Commission in their role as the CIAC? No one's present?
No one is present.
Okay. Then moving on, do any commissioners have any other items for discussion? Okay, then we'll just move into the forecast for future meetings.
I wanted to ask,
Oh, go ahead.
when are the new commissioners starting, and is anything regarding the new commissioners?
Yep, I was just going to give a little update on that. Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
We are in the process of, we're going to be reviewing the applicants next week. And so I think that they should be appointed by City Council in March, probably their second meeting in March, maybe even the first one, but by the end of March. So what we're looking at is potentially, if everything works according to plan, then what we would do is for the April 8th Planning Commission meeting, we would have the new planning commissioners on board, and then we would do the annual joint meeting with the NDAs and the PC orientation that night. So that is the plan at the moment, if all goes accordingly.
A question for me is, since I might walk out, how did that happen? I want to know which one will be my last meeting and which will be the other person. Like, I want to have an understanding of that.
Yep, no problem. So what we've got now, so that's a good time to go into the forecaster so we can talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So February 25th is an update on the transportation system plan. And so, Commissioner Fuenmayor, you may not, I don't know if you're interested in hearing that update, if you want to participate that night, but that is just a work session. It's not a hearing, so it wouldn't be necessary that you're here that night. However, we do have a hearing on March 11th that's very straightforward. We only have one item on the agenda that night, and it would be great if you could be there for that if we need a quorum, because it's been tricky with quorum lately, making sure that we've got 4 folks in the room. So as we get closer to that date, I can, if you're still available and willing to participate, you may not have to, but we can work on that behind the scenes, if that's okay with you.
I would love to, but that's the day of my oldest kid's birthday.
Okay.
And I don't think they will be really happy to see me sitting here in a meeting.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that. All right. So then, it sounds.
But I think that February 25th might be, and then I could join that meeting.
Okay, great. So you and I can talk offline about kind of the process for transitioning you off of the
Sounds good.
position. Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Although we're sad to see you go, I'm saying perfect, but I don't really mean that. I just mean perfect from a process standpoint.
Kick you.
And we're not meeting on March 25th, just so everybody knows, that's the week of spring break. I know we talked about that last time, and I forgot, I'm not here. So we will not have that meeting, so we're just kind of working around it.
All right.
Yeah.
Just to confirm, you had mentioned that the annual joint meeting with the NDAs and the orientation would be occurring on April 8th. So in
Yes.
the agenda, it stated that that was on the 11th, but on March 11th, we are only going to have the single code update.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. It got
wanted
updated
to
a
make
little
sure.
bit later. Yes, it's not correct on the agenda
wanted to
that
make
you
sure.
all have.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's March 11th for a hearing item. It should be fairly straightforward and quick. That's the only item on the agenda. And then April 8th will be kind of a longer meeting with the new commissioners and some NDA folks. We'll do some land use training. Yeah.
But if it's short, I might be able to join. I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay. All right.
The hearing on March 11th, there's only one of the hearings,
Yes, only one hearing.
only the natural resources code update.
Nope, it is it's a land division.
The MLP
Yes, the
2025.
MLP.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
The
Cool.
natural resource is not happening that night. Everything keeps getting shifted, and I apologize that was not correct on the agenda. We keep moving things around.
So is the MLP, that one that's not in there?
March 11th.
That's the one we'll be
the
doing.
MLP,
Yeah.
Okay.
and that's the one that would be short. That should be
Okay.
pretty short. Yeah.
No, the February 25th would not be short because that's a work session. That might be long.
Yeah, that could be a little bit longer based on, just depending on how many questions there are.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk offline about that.
Okay. Yeah, and sorry, I
Yeah,
apologize.
maybe be prepared for February 25th to be a longer meeting.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay, so I think we're good there. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, it's unanimous. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks
Good
all.
night. Bye.
Night.